My grandmother was on the verge of losing her home because the HOA despised her oversized rescue dog until they learned he was a retired K-9 officer who unraveled their entire corruption scheme. What would you do if an HOA tried to evict your elderly grandma over a hero dog? I knew something was off the moment I pulled into Grandma Lillian's driveway. 3 people in identical polo shirts stood on her porch, gesturing at her front door while she gripped Max's collar, her hands trembling. Max, her German shepherd, wasn't barking, just watching with those sharp eyes that never missed a thing. "Hey, what's going on here?" I called out, hurrying up the path. Grandma Lillian's face brightened with relief when she saw me. "Oh, Emily, thank goodness. These people say Max has to go." The tallest woman turned to me, her perfectly styled hair unmoved in the breeze. "I'm Patricia Collins, president of the Oakwood Heights Homeowners Association. Your grandmother is violating our pet restrictions. Dogs over 50 pounds are not allowed." I stepped between them and Grandma. "She's had Max for 6 months. Why is this suddenly an issue?" Patricia's tight smile didn't reach her eyes. "We recently updated our enforcement policies. All violations are now being addressed immediately." Max sat calmly beside Grandma, his training evoked in his stillness despite the tension. I'd helped her adopt him from the shelter where I volunteered. They'd told us he was a former CRVYC dog, but his past was a mystery. "My granddaughter found Max for me after my George passed," Grandma said, her voice shaky. "He's all I have for protection and company." The woman next to Patricia, later identified as Karen from 2 houses down, scoffed. "Rules are rules. If we let you keep a big dog, everyone will want one, and property values will tank." I couldn't believe it. "He's not bothering anyone, he doesn't even bark. We've had multiple noise complaints," the third person, a balding man with a clipboard, chimed in, "and reports of aggressive behavior or toward residents." Grandma gasped. "That's not true." "Who said that?" Patricia glanced at her watch. "We don't disclose complainant details. You have 14 days to rehome the dog or face DULA 100 daily fines." They handed over a thick envelope of papers and left, Karen shooting a smug look back that made my blood boil. Inside, Grandma sank into her rocking chair, tears streaming down her face. "I can't lose Max, Emily. I just can't." Max rested his head in her lap, sensing her distress. I flipped through the papers, my anger growing. The violations were absurd. Max barked from 2 to 4 a.m. when they were both asleep, allegations he'd lunged at kids despite no front fence, and complaints about dog waste when Max only used the meticulously kept backyard. "These are lies," I said, grabbing my phone. "And I think I know who's behind them." For weeks, Karen had been eyeing Grandma's corner lot, the biggest in the neighborhood. She chaired the beautification committee and had once suggested Grandma's house would be ideal for a community garden, too much for an old woman to handle. "Let me make some calls," I told Grandma, who was still crying. "They're not taking Max anywhere." 3 days later, I'd installed security cameras around her property and dug into the HOA bylaws. The no large dogs rule was a recent addition, not legally updated in 5 years or properly voted on. I was helping Grandma in her garden when Karen appeared at the fence, snapping photos of Max. "Excuse me," I called. "Can I help you?" She flinched, nearly dropping her phone. "I'm documenting the ongoing violation. Fines start tomorrow." Max, who'd been digging a hole for Grandma's roses, stood alert, watching Karen. "That's funny," I said, pointing to my camera. "Because I've been documenting too, like when you trespassed yesterday and rattled Max's kennel with a stick while Grandma napped." I showed her the footage. "Or when you sprayed something on the fence this morning." Karen paled. "You can't record me without permission. This is Grandma's property, can record anything here. Like when Patricia measured the shed 2 nights ago without permission. That's trespassing." Karen backed off. "This isn't over. That dog doesn't belong here." After she left, Grandma sighed. "I've lived here 20 years, since before this was Oakwood Heights. George and I were among the first to build. Now I feel like an outsider." I hugged her frail shoulders. "I'm staying through the weekend, and I've got a plan." That night, Max paced by the windows, rigid. When the doorbell rang, he positioned himself between Grandma and the door, protective, not aggressive. Patricia stood there with the HOA lawyer, a slick man named Victor Hayes. "We're issuing a final warning before enforcement begins tomorrow," she said, peering inside. "Leave papers in the mailbox," I replied, starting to close the door. Victor wedged his foot in. We need to confirm the animal's presence. Remove your foot, or I'll call the police, I said calmly. That's breaking and entering. He hesitated, then stepped back. The HOA has inspection rights with 48 hours notice per Section 7.3, he argued. Which you didn't prove, Wida, I countered. Also, the large dog rule wasn't properly ratified. I filed a complaint with the County Housing Authority. Patricia's face reddened. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm a paralegal, I bluffed. They retreated, Max GIVYing a single low woofie's first sound since I'd arrived. Later, I scrolled through neighborhood social media, finding complaints about Patricia's leadership fines, selective enforcement, missing funds. I messaged allies as a car crept past Grandma's house for the third time that hour. What are they up to, boy? I whispered, scratching Max's ears. He leaned into me, eyes on the street. By morning, Grandma's yard was trash plants uprooted, rose bushes hacked, and no dogs spray-painted on the driveway. Max growled softly. This wasn't just about a rule, someone wanted Grandma gone. The responding officer, Officer Martinez, seemed uninterested until he saw Max. Nice German Shepherd. Reminds me of K9 units. He's a rescue, I said. Shelter mentioned a service past, but no details. Martinez approached Max, who sat at attention. He spoke a German command, and Max lay down instantly. Police training, Martinez muttered, snapping a photo. No tattoo, but I'll check something. As he made calls, we cleaned up, neighbors helping or avoiding us. Mrs. Carter from across the street brought coffee. Patricia's been pushing out older residents for years. 3 sold to her son-in-law's development firm. I nearly dropped my mug. Her son-in-law's a developer? She nodded. Karen's their realtor. They buy cheap, split lots, build duplexes. They've wanted Grandma's lot forever. Martinez returned. Your dog's special. Matches a K9 officer missing from a nearby county. Max, a ranger, lost in a flood rescue. His handler's been searching for him. Grandma's hand flew to her mouth. The shelter said he was surrendered. Likely a lie, Martinez said. His handler, Officer Daniels, wants to meet you. And as a police dog, Max has protections, no HOA can remove him. Hope flickered, but that afternoon, the HOA hit back with an emergency violation notice. Grandma's unkempt property, thanks to their vandalism, now carried a $1,000 fine. They're trying to bankrupt me, she said. Furious, I launched a Save Lillian and Max page, posting EVY denke of the HOA's schemes. By morning, hundreds joined, including reporters and a council member. A black SUV rolled up as we ate lunch. A man in his 40s, Officer Greg Daniels, stepped out. Max bolted to him, tail wagging wildly. Hey, buddy, Daniels said, eyes misty. I've been looking for you. Over tea, he explained. Max, ranger, was swept away saving kids in a flood. Best partner I had. He's earned retirement and you're perfect for him, he told Grandma. His face darkened as we showed him the HOA mess. This is elder harassment. With Max's status, we've got legal leverage. Outside, Patricia, Karen, and 3 men approached one with a dog crate. Daniels stepped out. I'm Officer Greg Daniels, County K9 DVY. This is a retired police dog. Removing him is felony theft of government property. The crate guy backed off. Karen snapped. This is HOA business. Sue us, I said, but we know you're scam targeting seniors for your son-in-law's firm. Patricia paled as I bluffed about reporters revying soon. Daniels added, neighbors have questions about missing HOA funds too. They fled. That night, Grandma slept soundly. I sat with Max, watching the street. They'd regroup, but we had allies now and Max's hidden past was our ace. At an emergency HOA meeting, the room buzzed. Daniels arrived with the police captain, a DA, and officers. The harassment of Lillian Carter ends now, Captain Lewis declared, presenting Max's service docs. DA Sarah Kim added, we're investigating HOA finances. $43,000 in fines went to a private account tied to Patricia, Victor, and Karen. Neighbors erupted, sharing stories of intimidation. Max performed commands, charming the crowd. By 9 p.m., the board was ousted. Weeks later, at a barbecue, Grandma sat with Max, a temporary board in place, and $150,000 recovered. Sometimes standing up ripples out, she said. Daniels grinned. The department wants Max for a kids' event. As Grandma scratched Max's ears, I knew some fights were worth it and heroes come in all forms.